Right, I think we're live. At the start of every YouTube live, there's this moment, these few seconds where the host stands here or sits here, looking at the camera, looking at the screen, trying to work out whether he or she is actually live on YouTube. I think I am. In fact, I definitely am because people are starting to arrive. So, hello, guys. Happy Friday. Welcome back to Solo Club. If you're watching this in the future, firstly, thank you very much. And equally, if you haven't checked out my Substack newsletter list, please do. It's down in the description below. It's completely free. You can unsubscribe at any time if you don't like it. But if you do subscribe, every Friday I send out a written don't know why I did that for, but a written newsletter, which is an extension of this channel, really. It's me talking about this business, talking about the business of content creation and all that good stuff. And like I say, if you don't like it, you can unsubscribe, but just give it a go, see what you think. And yeah, so today, this might be a longer preamble waffle session on my behalf before we get to the questions from you guys who are watching this live, but we will do that, I promise. So as always, ready your questions, start putting them in the comments box, which I'm not going to look at. I'm going to ignore it in the nicest possible way until we get to the Q&A, just because I don't want to be distracted. But I do want you guys to put your questions in that box. Anything you can ask me questions about the stuff that I'm going to talk about today, or any questions that have been on your mind about content creation, my business, the way that I do all this stuff. Stick them in the comments box as we go along. Fill it, please. I love the questions. The questions are still the best part of these lives, I think. Doesn't say much for my content, does it? But anyway, you guys make it, so please do ask away. So what do I want to talk about today? He says, talking to himself. I want to talk about Medium. And because it's Friday and because I need to talk about Medium and the topic isn't particularly jolly, I thought I needed a bit of Dutch courage. So I do have a beer, which I think is no, it's not the first time I've done this on a YouTube live. I did do this when I had the 100,000 subscriber, as in the Mark Ellis reviews at 100k subscriber celebration, which was the first live that I did on this channel. I think I had a beer then, so this is the second time. But it's really called for because it's been quite a week. In fact, it's been quite a few months when it comes to Medium. And this is going to be a bit rambly, so I apologize in advance. I think if you're really interested in the workings of the writing side of content creation, this is I think it's going to be very, I hope anyway, it's going to be very interesting. If you don't have much interest in that, it may not be. I don't know, but I'd ask you just to hang on for a bit, because it's a fascinating topic, I think, regardless. Whether or not you're a writer and you've ever dabbled in writing online, or if you've never done it, or if you do it all the time, I think this is genuinely going to be quite interesting. And I think we're reaching a very important intersection for all this stuff, which relates to AI, the battle against AI, which is a topic in itself. I'm not going to go too much into that today, don't worry. And all these things that kind of surround the whole writing online stuff. Let me open this beer first, though. I mean, if you're joining me with your favorite beverage, it doesn't have to be alcoholic, obviously. Please, open your drink of choice, whether it's a beer or a coffee or an orange juice or water. I do have water, actually. I have water as well, which I'll open because water's important. I'm trying to drink more of it. But yeah, so firstly, cheers to being Friday. And also, let's talk about Medium. So I suppose the first thing to say is to explain what Medium is, because I appreciate not all of you will know what it is. It's one of those content platforms that isn't really widely known, even though most people have probably read stuff on it, if that makes sense. So I think you only really know about Medium if you're really kind of engrossed in reading a lot of stuff online, or you're a content creator. I think most content creators know what Medium is. But the best way to describe Medium is that it's a blogging platform. That's at its heart, that's exactly what it is. That's not being disrespectful to it at all, because it's lots more than that. And I don't think Medium themselves would call themselves just a blogging platform. But when you strip away everything, That's what it is. You write what they call stories. They don't call them blog posts or posts of any kind. They call them stories. So you write a story and you publish it on Medium. So it is very much a blogging platform. I've been aware of Medium for many, many years. I've used it on and off in different businesses and in previous guises online. But I've really invested a huge amount of time in it since starting this business, and in particular, starting the Mark Ellis Reviews channel or brand, if you like. Um, and it's played a central role in that business. It doesn't play as much of a role. In fact, it doesn't really play any role in Solo Club. But Mark Ellis Reviews, one of the most important elements of that business, has been Medium right from the start. And if I know there's some people on here who are members of the Medium Academy or are members of the Medium Academy, you'll be aware of how much work I've put into this, what it means to this business, and how I use it as well. So I won't go into all of that now because we'll be here for the next 3 days and I'll bore you to tears. But put very simply, the writing part of the kind of written content that goes with Mark Ellis Reviews ends up on two locations. So it ends up on my website, markellisreviews.com, and the exact same blog posts end up as stories on Medium. There's a story behind that in itself in terms of how that works with duplicate content and stuff. I'm happy to answer how that works. If anyone's got a specific question on that, stick it in the comments. Or the live chat, sorry. But yeah, it's one of the most important parts of the writing element of Mark Ellis Reviews, and I publish on it very regularly. So I think when I for the first couple of years, I was publishing every day, so Monday to Friday, like I say, for about 2 years. Very rarely missed any days. More recently, I've gone down to about four pieces a week. I hate that word, sorry, 4 stories a week. But I'm putting a lot of work into it. And I've built a relatively big audience on there. So I have 18,000, just over 18,000 followers on Medium. And from February 2021, I started earning over $2,000 on their Medium Partner Program every month. And the Medium Partner Program is a bit like AdSense on Google, on YouTube, where you earn a cut of in Medium's case, the membership revenue. You get a portion of that as a writer, and it's based on all sorts of metrics in terms of how they calculate those earnings. As I say, February 2021, which was roughly is just under a year after I'd started writing on Medium for Mark Ellis Reviews, I hit $2,000 for a month, which was amazing, absolutely incredible. And I didn't do anything special. I just carried on doing what I was doing. I carried on writing each day. I wasn't trying to game the system. For whatever reason, what I was doing was working. It was building a very nice audience, a very nice engaged audience. It was giving me an outlet for that part of Mark Ellis Reviews, for that written content, and it was delivering very profitable revenue. I'm very proficient at writing, so it's profitable because I don't spend too much time on each story. So in terms of the return, it's pretty good. There's no stock to worry about. I'm not spending money on anything at all apart from the time on and my brain power. So it was very profitable income each month. So that started in 2021, and I had some huge months on Medium. I think that the most I've earned in a single month on Medium was $4,700 ish. Occasionally it would go above $3,000, but it was always above $2,000. Then at the start of this year, it dipped, it dropped, ironically, during the Medium Academy, would you believe? The whole premise of that was based around how to earn over $2,000 a month on Medium. And lo and behold, the guy running it has stopped earning above $2,000 a month. You couldn't write it, if you excuse the pun, but that's exactly what happened. That was back in, I think, February this year. And since then, it's been kind of hovering just below 2,000. Now, that in itself is concerning because any any platform like this that gives you money for putting content on, that gives you money for putting content on the platform, you can't rely on. You should always have more than one source of income. I've always kind of given that advice for people who want to do this thing for a living. Never rely on one platform, because it's a fool's game in doing that. So the revenue does, by its very nature, go up and down each month. But to dip below that $2,000 mark, which I'd been hitting so consistently every single month, was obviously concerning. And what was more concerning, though, was that the views were dropping as well. So my views on Medium, the kind of rolling 30-day average, if you like, would be somewhere. I've not done the proper sums on this, but just from intuition, I know it was roughly between 60 to 70k. That's 60 to 70,000 views per month, which is not bad. It's pretty good. It's a very nice number. But that started to drop, and it started to drop quite significantly. The other thing that started to drop was the amount of engagement that I was getting on Medium. So prior to the start of this year, I'd get lots of comments. The regulars would always appear on each of the stories' comment threads and get involved and either agree with me or not agree with me, but do it in a very nice way. You get the occasional troll, obviously, but that doesn't matter. That's all good. That's all engagement is good engagement. But that started to tail off as well. So that these numbers were all starting to fall. The other thing that started happening as well was that the Medium used to do a thing called the referred. It's like a referral program where you give out a link as a writer, and if people sign up to Medium as a reader via that link, you get a portion of that income each month. Very nice. And I had amassed quite a number of, it was in the hundreds, I think, of people that had signed up through that link. They started to drop off as well. So they were starting to disappear, those members. So I had less revenue coming through all of a sudden. I had fewer, and a lot fewer. I'll come on to the numbers of where we are now. A lot fewer reads and views per month. And the engagement was dropping as well. And the members that I'd referred to Medium, they were disappearing. Now, this isn't good. I mean, in any kind of online content creation, you see peaks and troughs in the performance. It happens on YouTube. So I think the worst thing I've experienced on YouTube in terms of a trough was when I lost 300 subscribers in one day. This happened a couple of years ago, but I woke up and literally it kind of went like that for one day, gone. It picked up again after that, and it carried on. And the reasons for that, there's numerous potential reasons for that. But this does happen. So it goes up and down, and you get used to it, and there's a bit of a cadence. But typically, you're always growing. You should always be growing, particularly with subscriber numbers. It should be on an upward trend over a set amount of time. So Medium was the first thing I've experienced running Mark Ellis reviews where I'd hit this period all of a sudden where there was a continued and predictable almost downward trend. So that's scary stuff. I just need to have a quick slurp of the beer. Now, what happened? There's two things that Medium have done. The first thing they've done, I don't know what I'm doing with this beer. I'm not sponsored by these, but I'm not trying to hide it or anything. But if any beer manufacturers want to sponsor me, obviously. Joking. No, I'm not. So what Medium have done, there's two things they've done this year which have significantly impacted earnings and views. The first thing is something called Boost. Now, Medium, I think, is the only platform out there, or certainly the only big platform out there, that has a human curation team. So most platforms like YouTube or TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, etc., they have an algorithm, as we all know. That algorithm works out what it thinks you like to watch or read or listen to, and pumps more of that stuff into your feed, basically. Sometimes it gets it right, sometimes it gets it spectacularly wrong, but on the whole, over time, that algorithm gets better. It learns more about what you do like, what you don't like, and generally speaking, certainly with, I think, YouTube and TikTok, because no matter what you think of TikTok, they, I think, have got the two best algorithms I've seen. They deliver the right content at the right time to the right people. Takes a little while sometimes to get right, but it does work. All of that is code. There's not, as far as I'm aware anyway, there's no team of people in TikTok HQ or YouTube HQ sitting there watching videos and thinking, that's a good video, we'll give that a boost. That doesn't happen, thankfully. Medium does have that. So Medium has a curation team, and these are real living human beings who sit in an office somewhere. And basically, originally, what their job was to sit there and read. I'm simplifying things here, and if anyone from the Medium curation team is watching this, I apologize for making the job sound very simple. I'm sure it's not. But for in layman's terms that people like myself can understand, they would sit there and read stories, and if they come across one that is what they think worthy of a boost in the algorithm, they'd click a button and that story would get boosted. Now, that used to be called, if that happened to your story in the Medium analytics, you'd see this story has been chosen for further distribution in the analytics. If that was there, that means your story has been chosen and boosted artificially, and the impact of that was quite significant. So you could have a story that was kind of bumbling along, getting kind of few views here and there, and if it was picked up by the curation team, given a boost, off it went, and you would literally see a spike. It would go up, and depending on the type of story, if it had evergreen appeal, etc., it would remain there for quite a while. And as a result of that, you'd bring in more people to the story. They'd read potentially for longer, and it would increase the evergreen appeal of it as well. So it would probably last for a bit longer on the site, and you'd get paid more if you're in the partner program. So happy days. But it was all done by humans. It's important to note at this point that Medium does have an algorithm. There is I'm sure, a fairly smart algorithm behind the scenes, I think, that kind of helps this curation team. So you've got the combination of an algorithm and a team of people that makes the Medium stuff work. Now, what they did in 2023, this year, is ditch that kind of curation. What they did instead, they kept the team. So the team, I don't know how many of the team are still there, but there's still a curation team. But what they've done is change it into something called the Boost program. And the biggest change around this is that we still, like I say, we still have this curation team who have the ultimate power over that Boost button. But the stories that they're fed, they're not just them doing whatever they did in terms of researching themselves. They're actually offered as recommendations by what they call nominators. Now, I'm a nominator. I've been involved in this program right from the start of it. And as a nominator, you can nominate a certain number of stories each month to the curation team. Hope you're keeping up with this, to get boosted. So I could say, I've read this story. I think it's fantastic. It's worthy because of this, this, and this. Please consider it for a boost. And if the member of the curation team who receives that recommendation agrees with me, they click that button and it gets boosted. Hang on, need a drink. Some of you will have thoughts about this already, which may match mine, which I'll come on to in a moment. But anyway, so when that was introduced, which was earlier this year in about February or March, I saw a significant dip in views, and I wasn't alone with this. This is when my views began to tumble. And they went from being, like I say, kind of between 60 to 70k a month to about 20,000 a month. It wasn't quite as steep as that immediately. It kind of went from, 70, 60, 40, 30 for a bit. I remember it being at 30 for quite a while, and then 20, and then below 20, then back up to 20, then you get the picture. It really fell off a cliff. And this is also when my regular readers just started to disappear. Didn't see them. They just vanished. So that happened, and that wasn't great. Then probably the more visceral change that's happened this month, being August, is that they've completely changed the way the Medium Partner Program works. So as mentioned earlier, the Medium Partner Program is there to reward writers based on a whole number of metrics. And they've completely scrapped the original idea for this, and they've introduced a new set of calculations and ways of rewarding writers. Now, the reasons for doing this, the reasons behind doing this are completely fair, I think. They're basically looking to What they're saying, and what Tony, who's the CEO at Medium, has said, is that for a long time now, readers have said to them, look, we want more quality stories than quantity. Totally fair. We all want that. We all want that on all of these platforms, whether it be Medium or YouTube or whatever. If you spend a lot of time on a platform digesting content, you don't want to have to sift through rubbish, spam, AI generated stuff. You want to find the stuff that really matters to you. So it's totally admirable. It's very well meaning doing this, and I'm all for it 100%. These are some of the changes that they've made to the partner program, which I'm just going to read very briefly for you. One thing they have done, they've opened it up to 12 new countries, which is fantastic. So there's a whole bunch of countries that were excluded for whatever reason from the partner program to begin with. 12 more are now coming on board, which is fantastic. That gives access to far more people, far more writers. Is a really good thing. That's great. They've also removed the 100 follower requirement. So they had this for a while where you couldn't join the Medium partner program unless you had 100 followers. I think that's neither here nor there. I mean, it's a bit annoying to have to try and find 100 followers before you can start getting paid. But equally, finding 100 followers means you're doing something right. So you should be at a point then when you get. But regardless, that isn't there anymore. So you can get involved in the partner program straight away. No hassles there whatsoever. Again, that's fine. Good stuff. The big changes relate to the earnings, and they say the earnings will now be based on more meaningful metrics. So they're keeping the member reading time and the listening time, because you can listen to Medium articles. I think it's an AI-driven thing where it reads out the article to you. But basically, they're keeping in mind keeping very much in the top of the mind of the calculations, the member read and listening time. That's still apparently the primary signal, I believe. Some of this may not be factually correct. It's worth going to read this. I'm reading this off notes that I've made, but it's we're roughly there. It's also quite complicated. But they're starting. What the big change is that they're starting to include more engagement signals. So they're looking at things like claps. So on Medium, you can clap a story, not literally. There's a little clap icon at the bottom of the story, and if you enjoyed it, you can just keep pressing it for as long as you want to say thank you to the writer. Sorry. So they're taking those into account, but they're also taking into account highlights. So as a reader, you can highlight Medium stories and comment on specific sections. And also, if you read a Medium story, you can see where people have highlighted it. It's a brilliant feature, but they're taking that into account as well. But they're also looking at things like replies, comments, and follows, and that sort of stuff. Equally, if you have your story boosted via the thing that I mentioned a moment ago, that is added into the mix, and that gives you more earning potential. Now, all this sounds fine, I think. I mean, it's one of those things where they're being very open about their algorithm changes, which is very unique, actually, in this. If YouTube changes its algorithm, they tell creators about it a little bit. They do kind of give you a little bit of an insight into what they're doing, but they never tell you everything. They certainly don't really go into the details of how the AdSense revenue is calculated. They'll give you a rough idea, but they never go into this amount of detail. Medium are really being very open about how they're calculating the partner program earnings and about the boost program as well, which again is admirable. I think that's great. I think it's good to be a bit more explicit about this and reveal how these things work, because it's better for writers. If you know what you're working with, you can try and produce the best work that will be picked up by the algorithm, and in this case by the curation team. So again, I'm all for that. The other thing they're doing is they're trying to discourage clickbait by adjusting earnings based on read ratio. So that ratio is the number of people who read a story for 30 seconds or more. If that happens, then they're considered to be very engaged with that story. And again, that's taken into account for the payment that you get as the writer. So a good example of that, and they gave this example, is that if a story gets 100 reads in a single day, with an 80% read ratio, that will earn more than another story that gets 100 reads, so the same number of reads in the same time period, but with only 20% read ratio. So the one with the higher read ratio gets paid more. Great, because clickbait, if someone has a clickbait title and the content doesn't deliver on that title, then that's not fair on the reader. And why on earth should that writer be compensated for that? They shouldn't. Whereas the one who did deliver and kept the person reading, give them more money. Absolutely. This all sounds fine, doesn't it? The other thing they're doing is sunsetting the referral program, which I mentioned earlier. So the thing where you give a link out and you get a kickback, that's going, although they are honouring what remains of it. So if you've still got referred members, you'll still earn from them. Fine. So that's what they've done. Now the problem, this all went live on where are we? It's the 4th, isn't it? So this went live a few days ago at the start of August. Bear with me. I had no idea how this would impact my earnings. Literally no idea at all. Partly because it's so complicated. Before I talk about the numbers, just very quickly, the Boost program, which, like I say, I've been a part of in terms of being a nominator, it's just so convoluted. And I've got no numbers to back this up. I don't work for Medium, so I couldn't tell you what this is. But the costs involved in running that program must be unbelievable, because they've got this team they obviously pay, but they also, what I didn't mention earlier is that they pay nominators. So if you nominate and your nomination is accepted, you get paid for that. I can't quite remember what the number is, but it's not bad, and you get paid for each one. But also, they're obviously then paying the writer of the story as well, because if they boost it and it does really well, particularly with the new Medium Partner Program changes, that writer gets paid quite a lot of money as well. I dread to think how much this is costing. But more importantly, it's just so complicated. There was a massive Slack group about it. They have monthly meetings about it, public meetings with the the nominators, etc. It's just mind-blowingly complicated. And although they are being open about these changes to the partner program calculations, and as much as it's nice to see that, I'm not sure that it is, because again, they're so complicated. And yeah, so it's just so I because of both of those elements, I had no idea how this would impact my earnings. And it's very early days. We're 4 days into this new algorithm. However, knowing what I know about the cadence of my earnings, and having done this for 3 years and invested an awful lot of time into this, I know when it's been a good month and a bad month. And to cut to the chase, in the last 4 days, I've earned $24. And you don't have to be Einstein to work out that if you kind of extrapolate that, if that's the right word, basically at the current rate, I'm going to earn $270 this month. And bearing in mind, my last paycheck from Medium was $1,700, and that was quite a bit below, at least $300 below what it was the few months before. It's quite a drop, isn't it? It's one hell of a drop. So yeah, that's been my week, actually. And I'm not alone. I think there's probably a couple of people on here who are writing on Medium as well, in the tech space. They've had the same thing. Mine isn't the worst example. I'm aware of someone who was earning, I think, $170 a day on the Medium Partner Program. Again, writing in tech. He has gone down to $15, I think, a day for the last 4 days. Now, there's a couple of things to bear in mind here. One of them is that any algorithm change is going to be fairly cataclysmic for some people, and it's going to be very good for other people. And it takes time to settle in. We are, like I say, we're just 4 days in. This could just be I think, as Tony, the CEO, has kind of been saying quite regularly over the last couple of days, this could just be the money moving around and working out where it all goes. Fine, I can deal with that, and I'm willing to give it a bit of time. Secondly, there is no saying whatsoever that the dip that I've seen and others have seen in engagement and views and revenue, etc., is down to our writing. We have to accept that as content creators, maybe we're just not as popular anymore. Maybe there is some fatigue in terms of the topics we're writing about, possibly. Um, Maybe it's just not relevant anymore. Maybe it could be a whole number of things that why our content isn't performing, and we should look at ourselves for this. I'm not the sort of person who will think who will kind of say it's the algorithm, it's the decisions that Medium making, which is making my content perform badly. I don't default to that because that's not fair on Medium. They are running. They're very passionately running this company, and Tony, the CEO, is a very passionate guy. He's been there for many, many years. He's a writer himself. I've engaged with him a few times. He seems like a very nice guy, and he does get involved in these discussions, which is again a bit like the amount they share. About the partner program and the algorithm. It's very unusual. You don't get the YouTube CEO getting involved in comment sections. It doesn't happen, but he does, and that's really, really good stuff. But as a business owner and someone who, as I mentioned right at the start of this rambling session, has placed Medium at the heart of his business, really, alongside YouTube. This is really, really worrying. Thankfully, it's only a part of the earnings that I have, and I'm not going to pack up and leave tomorrow because I can't afford to pay the mortgage. It's not as bad as that. It's not great, trust me, but it's not. Thankfully, I do have other sources of income. I have other audiences, which is, again, as I said right at the start of this, incredibly important. But bearing in mind how much time I've invested in Medium and the fact that I don't think my content has changed, I think I'm still writing as passionately and honestly as I always have done. And I think I genuinely think I provide value to my audience. One thing that has really cheesed me off is that I was never asked about these changes. Again, Tony, I actually replied to his story about this that he published in the week, and made my feelings known. A lot of what I've said in this video, actually, and he got back and said, we for a year we've been told by readers that they want quality over quantity. But he didn't say, okay, well, I appreciate we perhaps should have reached out to writers, particularly writers who have a lot of 18,000 followers. It took a long time to build that. It's a lot of people. I don't like using this word, but it is because I'm British, but it is true. I'm a popular writer on Medium in the Apple space. I just am. I've somehow managed to carve that out. And he reads my stuff as well. He reads Mac O'Clock, which is the publication I write through on Medium. But to not ever be asked about this is, I think, really disappointing. And again, it's early days, but what seems to be happening is that the stories that are benefiting from these new changes are the ones that have lots and lots of engagement. So they have loads of comments, tons of comments, and they're quite emotive topics. So they're not talking about the latest iPhone or your thoughts on the Apple Watch Ultra. They're talking about very emotive stuff. Again, I've got no problem with that, and those writers should be rewarded. But so should we. We're writing tech articles that do get comments, but not. You're not talking hundreds of comments. And quite often, this isn't the case for my content, but if you're writing about, development, for instance, and programming, you might write a story, which includes some code snippets or something, and you're helping the audience because you're giving them answers to things they need to know about. They may read it. They may spend 30 minutes reading that story, and they don't comment because all they want to do is get the information they need and grab a copy and paste of some code snippets. Why on earth shouldn't that person who wrote that be rewarded because of these changes? It doesn't make any sense, particularly if they were being rewarded. And the other thing that seems to be happening, and I think they have confirmed this, is that older articles, so kind of legacy evergreen posts, won't really be you won't see much money for those anymore and you did it previously. So if you had a very high performing story, keep doing it, which performs well over time, you used to get paid for that. So if it was still getting views, which is always it's the case on YouTube, on any content platform that pays you back as the creator, if you have a piece of content that keeps working, you keep getting paid for it, which makes sense. That isn't the case with this new Medium partner program. So the people who were I didn't tend to get this myself too much, a little bit, but people who are doing very well out of evergreen content, their earnings have gone, been completely wiped out. So that's what's happened. And in terms of, I mean, I'm no guru here in terms. I've never developed a content platform myself. I don't envy Medium in terms of what they're doing here. It's a very difficult problem to solve. They're battling against AI content, loads of clickbait, loads of just, let's be honest, trash that is posted on Medium from people trying to game the system. I wouldn't want the job of creating an algorithm or something that battles against that. But I can have my say, and I think that the thing that I'd love them to do, one, I think the Boost program is an absolute waste of time. I think it's way too, it's such a heavy lift, so complicated. It's developed and run by committee. You don't get any feedback really as a writer. If your story gets boosted, you just get an email to tell you it's been boosted. You don't get told why it's been boosted. It would be lovely to know why that was the case, because you can then repeat it and make sure that you're writing content that Medium likes. But you don't get any of that feedback. So the Boost program, I think, was a massive mistake. I think probably a costly mistake. So get shot of that and just develop a proper algorithm. All of this hassle, stress, and multiple posts and poor commentary on social media about these changes could be eradicated if they had a really, really good algorithm which matches the likes of YouTube and TikTok. As I mentioned earlier, those two platforms that I think have the best algorithm out there. Medium could avoid all this stuff if they just did that, but they haven't. And the reason they haven't done that is because they want to be different. They want to have this curation team. They want to focus on quality. I understand all of that stuff, but as the reader, if we just put ourselves in the reader's position, all you want is to log into Medium and get a bunch of suggested stories that make sense to you, that you want to read. If that happens, brilliant. And the way you do that is that you do exactly what YouTube does, and you have a fantastic, very well developed, very smart, AI-driven, machine learning, whatever, etc., 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 algorithm, which delivers the right content at the right time to the right people. I was going to say it's not rocket science. To me, it is rocket science, because I wouldn't know where to start with that. But for the people who work in that area, it ain't rocket science. I should say, I don't enjoy this at all. I've not been looking forward to this live stream, actually, in a weird way. I've been looking forward to seeing you guys and taking your questions and stuff. But I've done this. I've written about it on my Substack newsletter list. I've had a brief, slightly interesting conversation with Tony on his comments thread, and I've talked to people behind the scenes about this, other writers, people that I respect and having a similar response to me. And I hate it. I'd much rather that Medium be working for everyone, be working for me, be working for my readers, be working for Medium itself. And it feels rubbish at the minute, and it's a real shame, because I love Medium. It's so important to this business, and the harsh truth of this is that I do have a certain amount of patience with this, but only a certain amount. That will finish, because I'm a businessman. This is an element of my business, and at the moment, what's looking like being the case is that it's going from being a very profitable source of income that I really enjoy and is helping me build an audience, to something that is costing me, and it's costing me in my time. How long am I going to put my time into something that doesn't deliver, one, a good audience, and two, ROI? I'm not. I'm going to do something else. I'd hate to get to that stage. Anyway, I think this might be the first rant I've had, a proper kind of really passionate rant I've had on this live stream. But you can probably tell I'm really, really disappointed by this. And I understand. I've not looked at the comments yet, but I understand if people are sitting there thinking, "Well, hang on a minute, mate, give it a go, give it a while." It's been 4 days, and it has been 4 days for the Medium Partner Program changes, but it's been a good few months in terms of decreasing analytics, and that, like I said, that's been since February this year. It's been dropping. And I know it's not just me as well, because I have friends who are writers on Medium, and if you dig beyond all the positive comments, which obviously are the ones that you see on Medium posts about this, there's a lot of unrest. So I wanted to make a bit of a big deal about it on here. And if you have experienced this yourself as a medium writer, please speak up about it, because, like I say, they do listen. Tony is a good guy. He reads this stuff. And I think it's important they're aware of this kind of thing. Dare I look at the comments? I've kind of closed the window. I can see there's 19 comments. Right. Wow. Let's go for it. Cheers, anyone. And besides all this, it's Friday. Cheers. Hope everyone's fine. Hope you're all doing very well. These things, as always, shall pass. But it's good to talk it through. We've got some new names on here, which looks some familiar faces, obviously, including Rob. Rob from the 8 or 16 podcast is always here, as is Jakob and a few other people. So hello to the new people and you regulars as well. Right, Alan, I've struggled with getting followers on Medium. Are there any other places you would suggest instead? Yeah, I mean, so one of the big things I noticed with Medium again, when things started to go, in fact, it was before this, it was probably throughout 2022, actually. I grew to 18,000 followers relatively quickly. It was still quite slow compared to YouTube, but I got there relatively quickly. But then it really slowed, and at the moment it's very slow picking up new followers. So I wouldn't put too much time into it, Alan. I wish I was saying the opposite of that. I genuinely. Oh, just something else I wanted to very quickly mention is that obviously part of the reason I'm so annoyed by all this stuff is that I have not only added a lot of content to Medium and brought in new subscribers for them, but I've run an entire Medium Academy that kind of the premise of that was to help people become better writers and, again, add to Medium's fantastic writer list. So having done that for a good few weeks this year, this is all a bit galling, as you can imagine. Sorry, went off on a tangent there, Alan. But yeah, so you've struggled to get followers on Medium. Are there any other places you would suggest instead? I'd look at if you're thinking about the writing side of things, which I guess you are, I would consider a newsletter platform like Substack or Ghost, which I think is a newsletter platform, is it? But Substack is the one that I use. Give that a go. I found Substack to be a brilliant outlet for Solo Club in particular. And if you pick, as always, as is always the case, if you pick a very solid niche, a very defined niche, and you're consistent with your writing, and you share the fact that you have your Substack newsletter list on social media and talk about it here and there, you can build quite a big follower base quite quickly. So I'd suggest something like that, and give them like a newsletter platform a go. There are more than Substack. People in the comments may offer their own suggestions. Rob, hello, Rob. Will you be signing back up for the artist formerly known as Twitter, X-Blue, in the hope that Daddy Elon will plug the $2,000 a month hole in your cash flow since Medium implemented its changes? I'm thinking very heavily about Twitter at the minute. I did have, as you kind of know here, I did have the Twitter Blue thing a little while ago. I think I cancelled it when the price hike came in on through iOS, and I just didn't see the value in it. I didn't seem to be getting any value out of it. Now I'm thinking more about it. I read an article recently by someone, another writer on Medium, who is suggesting that Twitter might become one of the best writing platforms, not just for short form stuff, but for long form stuff as well over the next couple of years. If that happens, I wouldn't think twice. I've made my feelings known, if you follow me on Instagram and Twitter, actually, X, whatever, about the whole X rebrand and the Elon Musk stuff. The kind of TLDR of that is that I just don't care. For me, it's still a very enjoyable platform to use. My mates are on there. I've made some very good connections with people in this industry, and I've learned a lot from it as well. Who runs it and how it's run, I don't really, unless it's someone absolutely terrible. And I know some people do think Elon is. I'm fairly indifferent about that. But as a business person, it's a very useful tool. And if they implement stuff which makes it a profitable writing channel, I'd start it yesterday. So yeah, in answer to that, potentially I might be signing up to Blue again, although not through iOS because it's more expensive. Richard, it's probably because people have found you on YouTube. That probably relates to something I was saying earlier, Richard, doesn't it? I don't know what that relates to, but yeah, it probably does. That's the problem when you're not looking at the comments while you're talking. People understandably refer to things while you're talking about them. Then you come back and think, don't know what that refers to. But yeah, whatever that was, Richard, I'm sure it's absolutely correct. Rob again. Re-algorithms. I bought some trousers on eBay once. Since then, they continually send me emails recommending men's bottoms. Oh, brilliant. Well, that says everything you need to know about algorithms, doesn't it? Have you bought any men's bottoms, Rob? That's the big question. Jeff with a G. I love that username. It's absolutely brilliant. I launched my website last night. How do I get people to actually go to it? Such a good question, Jeff, because why on earth would you create a website and not want people to visit it? It'd be utterly pointless. The best way to get people to come to your website is just to start publishing content on it and be consistent, be very focused on what you're publishing in terms of the audience that you want to target. So for me, for instance, if I want to target people who love Apple stuff, aren't bothered about benchmarks, and do have fairly decent disposable income, there are three elements I can tune all of my blog posts to to kind of speak to, and that will bring in the audience. The other thing you need to do over time, obviously, the other thing that you need to do is learn some very basic SEO. So many resources for this, but the only things I would suggest focusing on with SEO, because this is what works for me, that has worked for me, is working out how to come up with decent SEO titles, ChatGPT, how to write meta descriptions, ChatGPT, and just a little bit about things like meta tags for images. They're the three things that I do for all of my website articles on markellisreviews.com, and that site regularly pulls in 4,000 unique hits a day. I haven't paid anyone for SEO. I've talked about this before on one of these lives. I am far from an SEO expert, but those things have worked for me. But just be consistent. It takes a long time, Jeff. It's not something that will happen overnight. But if you do that stuff, it will work. I promise. Rob's on fire. Can I repeat that name? I'll just say Tony. How did you feel about the Medium boss Tony's reply to your comment on his post officially launching the new partner program, wherein he took issue with your use of the word prolific? It annoyed me a bit, Rob, actually, you may guess. So basically I said, I can't remember my exact wording, but I said something like, for someone as prolific as me on Medium not to be at least asked about these changes or sought their opinion, I'm really disappointed. Tony jumped on that immediately and said, the whole point of what they're doing, as I mentioned earlier, is to deliver what the audience wants, which is quality over quantity. And he said, calling yourself prolific goes against that goal. Cheers, mate. So that, I had to explain that prolific was in completely the wrong word. My fault. Totally the wrong word to use. I meant popular, which I don't like using, but it was just a stupid choice of word. But he did jump on it quite quickly, and an interesting approach to his reply. But there you go. Alan, no question from me, but I launched my channel on Monday. I have 9 subscribers. I'm in Luxembourg today and half holiday, half making a video. You get a mention in my first video. Awesome. Can we have a link, please, Alan, whenever that's available? Amazing. So you launched your channel on Monday and you've already got 9 subs. Where are we? Friday. That's amazing. That's absolutely awesome. Put a link if you've got it, Alan. Stick a link in the comments. But well done, mate. That's an awesome start. I'm honoured to be mentioned. Thank you. Here we go. So your channel is just called Alan Milbrow. Hopefully that's how you pronounce your surname. But it's not the same as I'm mentioning. Okay, well, let us know in the comments, Alan, and I'll make sure I subscribe. Rob, again, hang on. Slowest bit ever. Which short form video distribution, i.e. TikTok, Instagram Reels, Instagram Stories, YouTube Jorts, was that? I never know with Rob. Was that a typo? Or was that meant? Yields the best return on investment in terms of time spent versus engagement received? It's TikTok. by an absolute country mile. Instagram has, as in Reels, has definitely jumped up a bit recently. I found that my the performance of my short form stuff on Instagram Reels, and I do publish the exact same content on Reels as I do on TikTok and YouTube Shorts, but I found that Instagram has picked up a fair bit actually recently. I've had some really good numbers for me on Instagram and brought in a decent number of followers. But TikTok is just ridiculous. It's totally unpredictable and it's full of absolute imbeciles. But in terms of generating big numbers for this brand, it's almost unrivaled when it comes to short form content. It's just unbelievable. So in terms of time investment and return, because I don't do them, I have someone who chops that stuff up for me, and I have someone who publishes it. All I do is say, "Here's the long form YouTube video, chop it up for me." It's a huge return in terms of audience, not in terms of revenue, because I'm not making money from TikTok at the moment, but in terms of audience building, which is very important, obviously, it's massive. And brands do notice that. Brands do notice when you've got a good TikTok presence, so it does help during negotiations. Jakob, hi Jakob, a fellow tech medium writer, part of the crew. This is completely broken because Jakob's referring to, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Jakob, but you're referring to the changes to the Medium Partner Program earnings, how it's calculated, and you're saying that it's completely broken because sometimes just readers not interested in your readers are just not interested in your article after the first paragraph, and they go away from the article and move down your ration. I think what Jakob means is that it's basically the way they're calculating this is highly questionable, and the whole thing about reading time is so, how you measure that is so subjective. It's as subjective as the Boost program. It's very difficult to measure because you can't physically see the person reading. What if that? It's stuff like dwell time and all that kind of thing, where how if a story has been left open on a laptop screen for 3 hours, but the person's nipped off down the pub, does that count towards a long read time? It's so difficult, which is why I wouldn't want the job personally. Okay, so Jakob's confirming that you get, so going back to the nominators, who Medium refers to as nommers. So irritating. They get $45 per accepted article, and you can get paid for up to 20 articles a month. Jakob, you may know how many nominators there are. There's a lot. There's a lot of money here involved in this Boost program. Rob, again, any plans to cross-post short-form content to X? That still doesn't sound right, does it? It's really weird. And getting on some of the revenue share program on that platform. Maybe, possibly, yeah. I get the impression, I've not looked into it enough yet, but I get the impression that the revenue sharing on X is only really working for very big creators on there at the moment, which is understandable. They're the people bringing in the biggest numbers. I don't know if again, going back to the whole time spent ROI thing, I have no idea if that would be worth my time at the moment, but we'll see. I'm keeping a very, very close eye on it. Keep the questions coming, guys. I'm still going down the list. Most of them are from Rob, but do keep them coming. Should we get our friend Justin Cox of the Writing Cooperative on the podcast to see what he thinks about all this medium furore? Yeah, definitely. I think we'll get him on again, Rob. If you don't know Justin Cox, I think he's got about 50,000 followers or something, maybe more. Excuse me, on Medium. Very, I was going to say a very prolific writer. That's the wrong word, isn't it, Tony? A very popular writer on there. I don't think Tony is watching this, but I'm sure he's got enough of a sense of humor to know that a lot of this is in jest. Some of the stuff we're saying, so I'm sure he's taking it with a pinch of salt. Either that, or I'll check Medium later, and my account will be completely deleted. We'll soon find out. But sorry, yeah, Justin is a very good writer. He's been on Medium a lot longer than me, much bigger audience. So yeah, he's a good source of commentary for this, definitely. Jeff, I just put a story on Medium. Not sure how it works, but what the hell? You only live once. YOLO indeed, Jeff. I completely agree. Greg, hello, Greg. If you haven't checked out Greg's YouTube channel, just put his name into YouTube and subscribe. and thank me later. Or thank him later, actually. Sorry to hear about the bad news with the medium. I don't know the details, but I know how it feels when a revenue stream surprisingly decreases suddenly. Yeah, I've not really experienced it as bad as have I? No, maybe I have. I've experienced it with sponsors where they've pulled out of what I thought were long-term partnerships, and some of those have actually been bigger in terms of the revenue loss or the potential revenue loss. But this is definitely up there. It's very high in terms of um, the amount that's involved. It's a lot of money for anyone, apart from millionaires, obviously, which I'm definitely not. Yeah, but again, it does, and I know Greg knows this, and I've said this millions of times. It's probably getting very boring, but this is such a, like I said, a visceral example of this. You can't rely on any of these platforms. We're talking about Medium at the moment, but YouTube could do the same thing today. In 3 hours' time, I hope this doesn't happen. I'm not tempting fate, touch wood, but in 3 hours' time, they could make a change to their algorithm that completely changes the way that my content performs completely. Or they could change the way they reward creators on the AdSense platform. And again, that could be goodbye to all your revenue. You've got no control over that at all. The stuff you do have control over is your newsletter list. That's yours. If you decide how to, going back to the question I had earlier about, how to build an audience, you decide how to build that audience. You decide which platform to use for it, but you still retain ownership of it. The Medium audience, the YouTube audience, the Instagram audience, the TikTok audience, you are renting. The best analogy I heard from this a couple of years ago was someone, I can't remember who it was, so apologies, whoever said this, they won't be watching, was that YouTube allows you to build a mansion, and it does. You can do very well out of YouTube, but it allows you to build a mansion in its back garden, and it can very quickly kick you out if it needs to, or if it does so accidentally. So you can't rely on any of these platforms, basically. That's a long way of saying that. And this is just a very obvious example of it. Yeah, don't spread your influence across multiple platforms. Alan has shared his YouTube account there, guys, so go and check it out. I'll do the same. Greg, again, I'm sure that you'll have a number of other revenue streams built up that you can fall back on, but it still sucks. Yeah, I mean, like I say, there's it's a part of this business. I don't want to lose it, and it may not be lost. Who knows? I am going to be doing a bit of experimentation. Going back to the point of that, I can't just put all this on Medium. I do have to bear in mind that as a writer, I have to look in the mirror. So I'm already making some changes to the content that I publish on Medium going forward. Nothing drastic, but just things that I want to see if they have a positive impact on this. That is already underway, and I do have other plans. I have backup plans for certain things that could work off the back of this. And I'm a firm believer, I always have been in my life, not just professionally, but also personally, that everything happens for a reason. And when something bad happens, I've always had this with business, something good happens either directly afterwards or 3, 4, 6 months, a year later. And that happened yesterday, actually, funnily enough. I'm going to do that thing again. I can't really mention it. I can tell you part of it. So this Medium stuff has been happening all week. I was feeling pretty down about it yesterday. And then I had an email from a very big brand inviting me to a very big event. It's not Apple, by the way. That's the first thought everyone will have, I know, but it's not Apple. Inviting me to a very big summit. People who know what that might mean, don't put it in the comments, please, just in case. They may, if you know enough about the tech industry, you'll probably know what I'm referring to. I won't say anything else, but they've invited me to that, and it could mean a lot more as well. So that happened yesterday, which was a massive step, much bigger than anything else that had happened previously. So I'm a firm believer in things happening for a reason. So you can't be too down about this stuff for too long. Rob, how did the new outsourced thumbnail strategy work out on the DJI Action 4 video work? I noticed it was changed when I looked later, A/B testing, or felt the need to mix it up after a slow start. So I did. I've got a guy now who I'm testing out for thumbnail design. He's a very talented thumbnail designer, even though I was going to say he doesn't know it. He does know it, but he's not really sold that. He's not monetized that skill that he's got properly, which he's very aware of. But it really is a skill. He basically took my my video, which was a recent review of the DJI Osmo Action 4. I didn't give him anything else. I just gave him the video file, and he created an amazing thumbnail, 2 amazing thumbnails out of it, with very little direction from me. As Rob has noticed, I've tried out both of them. You can see the current one at the moment on the channel, on the Mark Ellis Reviews channel. The video hasn't performed brilliantly, but it was never going to. I'm not a camera reviewer. It's potentially a bit more of an evergreen video. It might pick up a bit in time based on the title that I've used. So I'm not disappointed with the performance at all. And again, I can't compare it against what I would have done, but it's, in terms of the thumbnail, mine would have been much worse. So I think it will have prevented an absolute disastrous performance. And the reason I changed it was just a bit of A/B testing, really, just to use both of them, really, just to see if the new one had any impact. Also, the new one had a much bigger view of the product was more prominent on the thumbnail, which I thought might, with hindsight, be a bit better. But yeah, I'm very much enjoying outsourcing that. Not all of them, but I'm doing it gradually. I must Justin probably isn't watching this, but I must apologize, because he has over 107,000 followers on Medium. That's amazing. Did I say 50? Sorry, Justin, that's totally wrong. Jeff, oh damn, I forgot. I posted my first videos on YouTube earlier this week. I used DaVinci Resolve. Awesome. They're kind of crappy, but hoping to improve over time. Great. Again, like I've always said, that first hurdle is posting that first video. Once you've done that, it's not plain sailing, but you've done the hardest thing. You've got the first one on there. Nice to see you using DaVinci Resolve. I'm always a little bit jealous of DaVinci Resolve users. I feel like I should be using it, because everyone seemingly has switched to it. And also, if you're a Final Cut Pro user, you'll know that the last 3 or 4 weeks have been rough, as you know, really, really rough. It's fixed now, thankfully, but there was a huge bug in it which was causing all sorts of problems. So I'm always jealous of DaVinci Resolve users, because they all just seem really happy, really pleased with what they've got. You've got Adobe. I'm going to cause some stir now for people watching this. You've got Adobe Premiere people who are always really annoyed with Adobe Premiere because it's always crashing, yet they always carry on using it. You've got Final Cut Pro users who just kind of get on with it and occasionally moan about something not working. And then you've got DaVinci Resolve people who I just see as being the happiest people on earth. And I want to be part of that gang. Maybe I will do one day. Who knows? Jakob, how much more time are you willing to put into Medium if you see that amount of time doesn't match the profit? Like I mentioned earlier, Jakob, I don't know, but I will. The patience will wear thin. I want to see what happens with August. I want to see what that final paycheck is. If it's $270 from the previous one, which was $1,700. That doesn't bode well, does it, really? But like I say, I'm making some changes to the way that I'm writing. Excuse Alexa. That's the first time that's happened on one of these. I don't know if you heard that. Yeah, so I'm making some changes to the way that I'm writing, and we'll see what impact that has. But I only have a certain amount of time, Jakob, with this, so it's not long. But I'm willing to see what happens, and also I'm willing to give Medium a chance, because they're not an evil entity. You know, that I genuinely believe that they have the best interests of everyone at heart. I just don't agree with a lot of what they've done this year. I think it's convoluted and not in the best interests of popular, hardworking writers. Some of them, yes, but not all of them. How will the current situation on Medium affect the planned new cohort of your course? Well, I mean, so the Medium Academy is no more. The current cohort will exist forever, obviously, and they do get some stuff going forward. But the next cohort is going to be an academy. I think I've spoken about this before on here, and there is a link in the description if you want to sign up to be the first to know about it. But the next cohort is going to be an academy based around everything about content creation. So it will include Medium, absolutely. Although that depending on what happens, that module will be different to what it is now. But it will be everything from YouTube to writing to podcasting, everything, the business side of things. And I haven't got the date fixed for this yet, but it is going to be later this year, just because of everything that's going on at the moment. So it's going to be quite a bit later this year. But like I said, there's a link below. And Medium will play a part in it, absolutely. So Alan has 3 main themes to write on. 1, tech, speciality. MuleSoft. 2nd is neurodiversity. And lastly, advanced driving. Wow, what the 3 serious subjects puts my waffling about the Apple Watch to shame, really, there, Alan. Should you have separate YouTube channels? I don't see how I can use one. Yeah, you can't, because those are 3 very specific audiences. If you're into advanced driving, I'd guess you probably don't have any interest, or you're very unlikely to have interest in that in MuleSoft. So yeah, you've guessed right. You'd have to have separate channels for that. And my advice would be just pick one to begin with. Pick the one that you're most excited about creating content for, and the one that you think potentially has the audience that you can talk to the most directly. And then if that works, you can then add the other channels later on. Don't do all 3 at once, Alan, please. Way too much work. You'll confuse yourself. You can't divert time to each one, enough time to each one. Just pick one, please. And then share it with us next week, if you're that quick. So you did publish your first YouTube. Okay, there you go. So you published your first YouTube video this week, but sound was rubbish, windy. I think I need a wireless mic. Depends very much on what mic you're using, Alan. If it was a lapel mic, or if it was a or lav mic, as we call it, or an on-camera shotgun mic. For both of those, you can definitely get what they call a dead cat, which is the kind of fluffy thing that sits on the top. They do a very good job of getting rid of wind noise. Post-processing doesn't really get rid of wind noise. In fact, you can't get rid of wind noise. Some of the voice isolation stuff that you get in things like Final Cut Pro does a fairly good job. But once wind noise is there, it's there forever. So I'd invest in a dead cat. That isn't a literal dead cat. It's a fluffy thing that you put on top of your mic. God, you can tell I've had a drink. Although only half a bottle. It's still the slowest beer I've ever had. We're beyond an hour for the first time ever, I think, guys. Mainly because I was waffling on for ages about Medium. But I'm willing to take more questions if you've got any. This is a good comment from Rob. So as Rob says, it's worth checking out the DJI mic, which is, bear with me, these, and it's not easily accessible, but DJI mics are these. So they sit in this lovely carry case, which charges them as well, like a pair of AirPods Pro. But the mic itself is this. It's this little thing here, which has amazing battery life. I can't remember how long it lasts, but it's ages. It also has memory built into it as well. So you just put that via either the clip or this little, I've started recording, there we go. The little magnet thing, you put that behind your shirt, clip the mic to it, away you go. And the thing I was looking for a moment ago is the dead cat, which screws on the top. So if you've ever seen me using this in any videos, you've probably seen it with the fluffy thing on the top of it, because I'm normally outside with these. But they are absolutely brilliant. If you want to make your life even easier, just get yourself this video isn't sponsored by them, the DJI Osmo Action 4, because the mic on that camera, tiny little action camera, the mic on it is unbelievable. It doesn't deal with wind noise as well as a dead catted one of these, but it's still incredible, and it reduces your gear overheads massively. Right, guys, before I wrap up and finish this beer off and go home, any other questions? I hope all of that Medium stuff made sense. That was all very much from the heart. I had some notes here that I was kind of reminding myself of things that I wanted to touch on, but I hope it made sense. I hope it was fair. I don't think anyone from Medium's going to watch this, but they might do, I suppose. But I genuinely hope it was fair. I don't think I'm being overly critical about this or impatient. I think the fact that I've been dealing with this since February this year, and And it's not as though it's like if it was a dwindling affiliate income. So if I'd been making $2,000 a month from an affiliate thing, product sales and commission, that's almost a bit easier to deal with because it's just poor luck, and it's maybe your strategy isn't working with affiliate sales. But because I've put so much time into Medium, and because I'm a writer first, I love writing. It's been the thing that I've always been the best at, I think. It's just really, really upset me this week, really, and because I want it to work. I want Medium to work for everyone, and I don't know. Like I say, if firstly, if you're using Medium and it's working brilliantly after these changes, I'm genuinely super happy for you. That's amazing. But equally, if you're not, if you've experienced what I've experienced, get involved in the commentary about it because it does make a difference. Richard, you've watched my Skillshare Final Cut Pro course, and it was very good. Thank you. I made that ages ago. I'm glad people are still finding some relevance with it. Will you be doing a more advanced course or a motion course? I won't be doing a motion course because I have no idea how to use motion. I'm terrible at that sort of stuff. I just buy templates and use them, or buy pre-made stuff when it comes to graphics. But in terms of a more advanced Final Cut Pro course, at some stage, yes, it probably won't be on Skillshare, to be honest, because it's not the best outlet for it these days. Unfortunately, it used to be, not anymore. But yeah, I'll do something around that at some stage when time allows. I'm just not sure when that will be. Okay, guys, I think we're at the end. Any last questions? If you can get a question in now while I take one more swig of this beer, I'll answer it. There's a good. Make it about anything. Ask me a stupid question. I don't. Try. I don't know. Try and hit me off guard. Take me off guard. What are we talking about? Try and get me off guard with a question if you want. I bet Rob does that. I know you've put a beer emoji, Rob. Thank you. I should also say as well, I think that I'm not really down about this. I'm annoyed by it and a bit angry and feeling very passionate about doing something about it. But it hasn't ruined my week, put it that way. I'm still very buoyant about this business. I'm still loving running it. The numbers everywhere else are still fantastic. And there are, like I say, something happened this week, which was huge. So yeah, I've got a lot to be thankful for. And I think it's important to remember that stuff. Yeah, Rob, you're right. I don't want you to I don't want you to be the one that asks me that question that catches me off guard. So yeah, I think it's ending on a positive note. If you think, I don't want to put you off getting into this industry because that's never the point of these videos. This is still the best job I've ever had. I love it to bits. And yeah, let's finish on a positive note like that. That makes sense. Thanks guys for tuning in. This was a really active one. I think you've put up with me having a bit of a rant, which is great. Really appreciate it. I feel better for doing it. And thanks for the questions, because as always, they make these videos what they are. I'll be back, I think, at the same time next week, or will I? I think it might be a bit earlier, actually. We are having to move these around a little bit just because of the stuff we're doing. Yeah, funnily enough, it's next Tuesday. So actually, in a few days' time, I'll be doing another one. So if Tuesday works better for you, if you're watching this in the future, then Tuesday at 4 p.m., Tuesday the 8th, of August, at 4 p.m. UK time. I will adjust the time occasionally, possibly. Yeah, I'll see you then, guys. And as always, if you haven't checked out the Substack newsletter list, click the link below. See what you think. If you don't like it, you can unsubscribe. No hard feelings. But equally, I think you might just find some stuff in there interesting every Friday. Anyway, I'm going to love you and leave you. Thank you very much for being a part of this, guys. And I'll catch you in the next live stream. Have amazing weekends. Cheers.